Hi, I'm Clarissa Mall, producer and moderator of the Bulletin. Here's a short clip from one of our segments in this week's episode. To hear the whole conversation, visit the link in our show notes or search for The Bulletin on your favorite podcast platform. The numbers are almost all in now, and it's pretty clear Democrats lost big time in the election cycle of 2024. Republicans have won control of both the House and Senate, creating a trifecta of power that will challenge Democrats at every turn for the next 2 years and possibly allow the reshaping of American government in ways no voter expected. As the dust has fallen on the election, Democrats and some disaffected Republicans are asking, what happened? How did we get here? Joining us as we break down and analyze this day of reckoning are CT's Nicole Martin and CNN senior political commentator Adam Kinzinger. Adam, Nicole, thanks for being with us today.
You bet.
Thanks. So, Adam, I want to begin at the beginning because I thought Joe Biden was supposed to be sort of a bridge president. He was going to tide us over until the country settled down. Did the Democrats' trail toward loss actually begin back when Biden decided to run again, when he decided he didn't want to build a bridge but build a legacy?
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, I think we were all pretty surprised that he was going to run again. I mean, I think, at one point, I don't even remember the exact words, but he had seemed to either imply or straight up said he was going to be a one-term president. So, the fact that we saw obvious cognitive decline, let's be clear, and the fact that, he had then made the decision to run again, despite what everybody was led to assume, it really kicked off this whole process where you had Democrats that were kind of deflated. There weren't a lot of Republicans that were super excited about Joe Biden. There was not a lot of people that really thought that he was going to make it through the next 4 years, at least, with all the faculties there. So it was a big mistake. And, ultimately Harris was kind of handed the baton with 3 months left. She was unable in that process to shake her reputation as a San Francisco liberal, despite the fact that she tried. And that really damaged her. And I think, honestly, Joe Biden went from potentially being a hero in this process to, I think folks are going to look at him and put him in line with like Jimmy Carter and potentially on foreign policy as well. I mean, Ukraine could very well fall apart, and it's been 2.5 years of Joe Biden holding Ukraine back from the ability to defend itself. We can get into more of that, but I think his legacy is going to be pretty tarnished because of this, honestly.
Mike, we have this electoral process that has a sort of weird emotional swing between my vote counts and it doesn't matter. The Electoral College chooses anyways. Do you think that removing this element of choice really in Joe Biden deciding on Kamala as the next person, as the replacement to run, actually meant that voters weren't really invested from the beginning in her success?
I think there's some of that. I mean, I think part of the problem for her was that, number one, it was always going to be difficult for her to create any distance between herself and his reputation, because obviously she was his running mate, she was his VP, and throughout his presidency, she had vouched for him. She had said that she was in every meeting and he was sharp as a tack and all of this kind of stuff. So creating any distance from the beginning was going to be very, very hard. But there's also been reporting that when Biden bowed out, people were not prepared, like the Democratic Party was not prepared for him 30 minutes after announcing that he was stepping out of the race to endorse her as a candidate and basically make what, again, in some of this reporting, what you've heard is that the anticipation was he would bow out. They would do kind of a rushed mini primary leading up to the Democratic convention, and then by endorsing her, he kind of forced their hands and made doing something like that much more difficult. It would have been much uglier, and would have probably divided the party in ugly ways going into the convention. So, I mean, that's another aspect of the Biden legacy. I imagine we'll get more reporting on that. I imagine there will be more leaks about that over time as the party kind of reckons with what's happened here. And if that's the case, I mean, that's another part of his legacy, is to kind of torpedo the opportunity to have a somewhat open process that could have gotten a better candidate, a more appealing candidate, a more broadly appealing candidate to the party.
Nicole, a lot of people have been saying in the last week and a half, well, America isn't ready for a female president. And I've got to confess, I have a really hard time with that idea as a woman. Women are in C-suite positions. They're in all levels of government. They're pastors. Women in education vastly outnumber men. It feels a little bit reductionistic to say that men don't want to be led by a woman. Could it be that we're not ready for this version of a woman president? And maybe HRC, Hillary Clinton included here, what would this version of a female president be that is so off-putting to us? And what would Americans need to see to make a female candidate compelling?
Yeah. So questions like these are challenges for me because it just begs another question. What kind of woman is enough? What type of woman would be enough? And as long as we're asking the question, what type of woman would be enough, then we're never asking the question, what needs to happen within our power bases to shift so that we understand the power, the efficacy, the capacity of people who just are qualified. This kind of drive that women or that certain people who are not part of the power base have to assimilate and to mold themselves to be attractive or to be seen as viable to certain people is not only damaging to the women who are in those positions of power, but it's also damaging to people who are looking to move into those spaces. So I think for me, the question is, how do we shift the perceptions of the people, the everyday people around us, to help our country understand that if you need to move in this direction and a woman is the best, most qualified person, don't let any of your bias, your challenges stop you from doing that. So, this is the question for the electorate. Like, how do we identify our fears so that we can move forward in the right direction? This is not a one-time thing. We're not just going to see a fluke of, that one year a woman ran. There are so many qualified women, and most of us are raising amazing qualified women. So I want to be part of that change in my church and my community to help people understand women's capacity for leadership, even and especially in positions of government.
Adam, do you think that the first female president could actually be a Republican?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I was going to say I think the first female president will be a Republican. I mean, obviously, I thought Harris was going to win, and I thought the thing that I thought was pretty interesting about Harris is as I got to know her and as I got to campaign with her, she was very presidential. And that's unique because, obviously we've never seen a female president. So it's like, how does somebody look presidential when they don't look like prior presidents? But I just saw in her that kind of leadership capacity. And I'm like, she'd be great. Frankly, I could see her standing up to Vladimir Putin, unlike the guy that we're going to have again, that kind of stuff. But I do think when people just generically say America didn't vote for a woman, it does a real disservice to Americans, because I think if Nikki Haley had been in the race, she'd have won. And so the question is, was it a woman thing, or was it maybe it's liberal women, for whatever reason, have a harder time winning? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's possible. The interesting thing that's going on, though, in the broader scheme, is we're in the middle of a massive political realignment, whether we recognized it or not. If you were a social issues voter, you probably will stay with the party you were with, Republicans or Democrats. If you were an economic voter, you probably have switched parties. Old Republican economic voters are now Democrats. Old Democratic economic voters, i.e. unions, are now Republicans. And it's really hard to say what is the electorate at now and what's it going to be when we've gone through such a massive realignment that really even political scientists are shaking their head going, I don't know if it's over and I don't know how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, Adam, you say that. And Mike, I think about the conversation we had a little bit last week about the ad, Kamala's for they, them, President Trump is for you. Did Democrats read the tea leaves wrong on these social issues like trans issues, their unwillingness to budge at all on issues related to abortion? Is America really more conservative on these issues than the headlines might belie for us?
So I think there's a couple different answers to that question. One, when it comes to the abortion issue, Democrats way overplayed their hand because they weren't listening to Trump, and voters were listening to Trump. And Trump was saying, guys, basically, I'm pro-choice. There's things I don't like about, third trimester abortions. Guess what? The American people don't like third trimester abortions. They just generally don't. But he was saying over and over again, I'm not signing anything into law about abortion. It's gone to the states. I've done what I said I was going to do, and that's the end of it. voters believed him. And so making that a front and center issue for the Democrats, I think was a very, very significant mistake on their end. I think when it comes to some of these social issues as well, I mean, one of the reasons you see Latino voters moving to the Republican Party over the years is, guess what? Latinos are social conservatives for the most part. Many Latino immigrants, first and second generation Latino immigrants, particularly from South and Central America, are people who came to the United States fleeing communist and Marxist authoritarian governments. And so I think a lot of us looked at Trump doing this campaign thing where he was, ranting and raving about how Kamala Harris was a Marxist, comments that she basically ignored, right? Because they seemed like stupid smears and all the rest. There was probably something effective about that kind of messaging.
Listen to the full episode wherever podcasts are found.